Bizarre Brain Comics.
Hello, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, examine the characters. Well, take a look at the characters and the creators, and then examine the stories and the art. And today, what I want to go way back, way back machine to 1962. Gold Key Comics. This is Dr. Solar, the Man of the Atom, number 5 from 1962, like I said. Okay, and you might be saying, who's this Dr. Solar guy? Well, he's Gold Key, so chances are you're not as likely to know him. Okay, let's see what the big book of knowledge has to say. Dr. Solar, the Man of the Atom. He's a comic book superhero who first appeared in Dr. Solar number 1 in 1962 from Gold Key Comics. Created by writers Paul S. Newman and Matt Murphy, who was, I guess, also the editor, and artist Bob Fujitani. Other publishers which have featured this character are Valiant in the 1990s. That's when I first, well, of course, that's when it was first brought back by a different publisher, and I didn't like the way they handled the character. Then Dark Horse in the 2000s and Dynamite in the 2010s, and I've never seen any of those two versions, so I don't know how they handled the character. After the Dell Publications became Gold Key Comics, it's more complex than I want to get into. Dr. Solar was the first original character created for Gold Key. The first 2 issues bore cover paintings by Richard M. Powers, and thereafter they were done by George Wilson. I've seen that name many times. And Dr. Solar did not even have a costume until issue 5. That's this issue we're going to take a look at. And after 5, the part of the creative team changed to Frank Boll doing the artwork. And then with issue number 10, the writer changed to Dick Wood. Now there's an unfortunate name. In later issues, through the 20s, the numerical 20s, the art duties cycled through the stable of artists from Gold Key until the last issue at number 27. Then in the early 80s, the title was restarted under the Whitman banner. These were the books that were mostly reprint books, put into poly bags and sold in toy stores and department stores and stuff like that. You get like 3 or 5, whatever, for $5 or whatever it happened to be. I was under the Whitman banner, and that was restarted at issue number 28 and only ran for 4 new issues. I think I have 2 or 3 of those. And then I wanted to, since I haven't come across this artist before, I wanted to take a little look at Bob Fujitani, and there really wasn't much I could on him. And Bob Fujitani is 1921 to 2020, so he was 98. He was actually almost 99 when he passed away. And he was an American comic book artist. He was from Irish and Japanese descent, hence that Japanese name. And he studied art in New York City, didn't say where, and started in the 40s. He began drawing comics for several small publishers, several small comics publishers. Okay, and he worked. Some of those that he worked for over the years was Avon, Dell, which later became Gold Key, Harvey, and several others. And he, of course, he co-created Dr. Solar and worked in either a writing or drawing capacity on several comic strips such as Flash Gordon and Rip Kirby for many years. So that's interesting. I like both of those. I've never done any Rip Kirby here, and I don't think I have much. And what I do have is old. Okie dokie. Let us journey to Atom Valley and take a little look at Dr. Solar, the man of the atom. Okay, here, see that full image for that cover, and here's another issue from a couple years later, but this is the one we're going to be looking at. The Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom, number 5. This one is, I forgot which one they said this one was. It doesn't matter. And you can see this nice painted cover by George Wilson. This one is a bit more dynamic than often. It often represents, and a bit sketchier, and that probably has due to the flames. And then, like they did so many at this time, the cover illustration is reprinted on the back cover as a pinup, so you see it without all the type on the front. But they didn't do that all the time or for all that long, because then they became just the regular ads on the back, like all the other publishers did. So it's George Wilson, Man of the Atom. Now, one of the things, okay, this character, he had an accident for his origin. He had some kind of accident in an experimental reactor in this place that they call Atom Valley, which is where all kinds of atomic-oriented sciencey stuff was going on. It's a little like later Silicon Valley, but and if you happen to have seen the movie Watchmen, and you saw the origin of the character there, Dr. Manhattan, that is basically the origin of Captain Atom. Correction, Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom. And Captain Atom at Charlton, from what I understand, was kind of a swipe of Dr. Solar. And Dr. Manhattan and the other characters were based on, from Watchmen, were based on Charlton characters. So that was basically Captain Atom, but they kind of made him a little more like Dr. Solar. And he was like nearly destroyed. He emits radiation, and he can be a danger to people around him and stuff. But as this story begins, he doesn't have a costume, and people don't barely know he exists, or most people don't know he exists, even people around him, because he's keeping his mere existence a secret up until this time. And after this issue is when Frank Boll took over the art duties, and I suspect, at least in the second half of this, that he did some help or lent some help to Bob Fujitani in doing this one, because there are just some panels that just look like Frank Boll rather than Fujitani. And their style is very similar in the first place. His Fujitani is a nice, clean, very very slick illustrative style, not unlike Frank Boll's, and and the style that you would the books was standard for the books at this time. Not so dramatic and dynamic as Marvel was becoming, and DC did later did, uh, and which has since become a mainstay for comic book art. Yeah, on the inside covers, instead of ads like most of them, they have these little blurbs, little things about science. In this case, it's about atomic energy there, and on the inside back cover as well. Here we go. The crystallized killers. You see, this is Dr. Solar right here in his normal human guise in the laboratories, working on some kind of experiment with this gizmo, and in the process of the experiment, he's created something. This small crystal has formed. So he wants to go tell his boss, what's his name? Dr. Clarkson, his boss. And he's always wears these dark glasses because his eyes would do stuff. Like glow or whatever, I've forgotten. And then he puts on this special lab coat designed for him, which is shielded to help keep radiation from escaping his body, which is kind of what they wound up doing with Captain Atom. Anyway, he goes to, and they take a look at this crystalline form. It's a little small thing. Oh, that's interesting. They have to take it to so and so in New York to have it looked at. He's a specialist in crystals. So here, Dr. Solar is flying in his airplane and arrives, and he puts on his special cape over cloak over his body, which is also shielded to protect people, and special gloves. Takes it to what's his name? This doctor takes a look at it, and in the process, the crystal gets knocked out of his hand, and he drops it to the ground to pick it up, and suddenly it's larger than it was before. They try to put it back in the little box, and it doesn't fit. So they wonder what's going on. They have to, for insurance purposes, have to lock the lab. Meanwhile, here are these unknown agents of some unknown power. Not necessarily of political power. You can see this is nice, clean artwork, and the panel borders have no line delineating the panels, which was common for Dell at the time, and continued for some of Gold Key, like later on the Star Trek books with. I've suddenly forgotten his name, the Italian artist. I know his name, and I've suddenly forgotten it. Anyway, these two guys, they get hooked up in a disguise. They've got a key just like the one that the doctor has, because the lab has to be locked at all times. So they need to get in there, and they want to get that crystal. I don't know, no way of knowing how they know about the crystal or what, but their boss, who I suspect who their boss is, wants that crystal. So here they're looking at it, and they bombard it with some other stuff and other energy rays, and all the time it's getting bigger. Every time it's exposed to something, it gets bigger. The guys break in, and they want that crystal. They wind up, while trying to defend them, the other doctor is shot and killed by these goons. So Solar is one angry dude. He takes off his cloak and then starts building up his radiation. He becomes red hot and glowing, and they shoot him, and the bullets just melt. I don't know why his clothes aren't burning off, but they keep shooting until he gets up and grabs their guns and melts the guns away. And in the process, this crystal is getting larger and larger, and their bullets ricochet some mist and hit the crystal, and it gets bigger and larger and larger. Each time it's exposed to more energy, it gets larger until it encases all three figures. And Solar has ramped down his zoomies, his radiation, his energy output. Now they're all trapped inside there. So he tests the crystalline structure, smashing it, and each time it starts getting bigger. So he has another method to try to get out of there, and he converts himself to energy and zaps around and is reflected off the inside crystalline structure, but there's no exit for him. So then he realizes that the crystal is getting larger and larger and larger, but there's no new matter. So in the process, it must be getting thinner. The shell must be getting thinner and thinner. So he keeps pounding on it as the thing keeps getting larger and larger and larger until finally it disintegrates. Boom! See, some nice clean artwork. You can see he did a real nice job. That's probably one of the most dramatic, dynamic images in here. Then he gets the gun of the last guy and calls the cops, security, and they get the cops, and the guys are arrested for killing Dr. Woolston. That's his name. Dr. Woolston's killers face chair. They face the electric chair. I don't think it would be that close, because he just got back. They wouldn't be going yet. And they have a little backup feature of this professor talking about some sciencey stuff. Now in part 2 is the new man of the atom. And this is kind of a continuation, and it rehashes his origin. Now this is a story that I think Frank Boll worked on as well. There's still some. It might have been all Frank Boll, because the line work looks a little different, but some of the faces look the same. But that is definitely a Frank Boll face. So he's back at Atom Valley in his little protective area there, and he notices that his hair color has changed. Like, this is when they revamped the character. He went from dark brown hair to suddenly his hair has all turned white except for his dark streak right in the middle, which makes him look kind of cool. He still has to wear his glasses. This looks like this is when they revamped the character, and this does look like Frank Boll here. And this is when this lab assist, other doctor and friend and love interest for Dr. Solar, Claire, because she didn't know anything about his power, but Dr. Clarkson did. And so they have to wind up having to tell her, because he's trying to keep her away from him. That's why he's been cold and standoffish and keeping away from her, so that she isn't exposed to potential danger. But they said eventually somebody's going to find out. So he decides to come up with a costume for him so that he can appear and do stuff as the man of the atom without necessarily throwing suspicion on himself. So then go a few days later, and here's this villain, Dr. Neural. We saw him in the first panel in this part of the story. He is a recurring villain, and he evolves over time. Eventually, he's just a robot with Dr. Neural's mind in him. And for quite a while, they don't actually show his face, keep his face in hiding for no damn reason. He's just a villain, but it makes him more mysterious. Like here, you don't see his face. And he has goons over around in Atom Valley, and he's setting fires with the flamethrowers, and which menace some scientific this missile base right there at Atom Valley. Even though the fire on the surface would not have anything to menace the weapons in the silos, but that's just for their story. And so they get Dr. Solar, and here he is for the first time showing his new costume. And these goons are out there and saying, "What's going on? And what's this?" And boom, there he is. Suddenly the appearance. So now this one looks less like Frank Boll and more like kind of like Fujitani. But so I think the two of them were working together on this part of the story, and these guys are there in communications with Dr. Neuro, and because he has come up against the Man of the Atom before, he's sure this guy exists, but he doesn't know who he is. So this is the first time I actually get a good view of him, but of course he's got his skin green colored and etc. So they attack him with the flamethrowers. Boom, zoom, boom. Has no effect on him. He comes up, takes his glove off, and just destroys the nozzle on the flamethrowers. Then makes his hand flash, blinding the guys temporarily. But while they can't see to get away, he comes up with a plan to put out the fires. Does some atomic hanky-panky with his body. Meanwhile, Dr. Neuro is still watching this, and he creates this channel from a river to the plane where the fire is, and floods the plane, puts the fire out, and then which also floods the missile silos, making the rockets safe. Realistically, those silos would be watertight, and that water wouldn't get in there because that would have been considered beforehand. But it's just good for the story. But that's kind of little stuff that kind of irks me, just because I was a missile technician in the Navy and I know a little bit about missiles, even though these would be Army or Air Force missiles and different weapon system. Some things are the same. And then the goons are picked up by the authorities, and Dr. Solar takes off. Now that everyone is marveling at who is this new Man of the Atom, and Dr. Neuro is not happy, and he stabs his image. He says, "He must be some supernatural creature with extraordinary powers. Whatever he is, he must be destroyed." Dun dun dun. And stories aren't as necessarily as well crafted as some of the others. I mean, these were fun. These are fun. I like Dr. Solar. I only have a few issues, and I would like to get the big reprints from books, like some of the others that I've got, so I can read more of Dr. Solar. I like the character. This was published on a quarterly basis, so the original run only went up to 27 issues, and it took 17 years to do that. So so there weren't as many issues as you would have for most of the monthly or bi-monthly titles, because Gold Key did a lot of bi-monthly and quarterly issues of titles. So that's all I've got for now of Dr. Solar, Man of the Atom. I hope you enjoyed this. This is a something different from what you may be used to, because it's older, and if all you know are the mainstream Marvel DC characters, this is something you might be interested in taking a look at. And they are fun. One thing I do like is they're usually one and done. One story, complete story per issue, rather than multiple issues for going on and on and on and on for a single story, which is good if the story calls for it. Sometimes, quite often anymore, the stories aren't worth that many issues. I tell you, it could easily be done in just one or two issues. So that's all I've got. Please like, share, subscribe, share it with your other comic book friends. And remember, comics are art.